What's up, good people, man? Welcome to another episode of the Ultimate 216 Show. I am your host, Earl Da Pearl. As always, y'all know the vibes, man. Like, subscribe. Can't thank you enough today, man. We celebrated 500 episodes of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Can't thank you all enough, man, for being supportive of our flagship show, all of our spinoff shows. Make sure you tell a friend, tell a relative. Again, like, subscribe, you know, get the memberships for overtime. You get all the emojis, the badges. As always, drop in the comment section, hashtag U216, and also let me know what part of the city, what part of the country, what part of the world that you are out there watching from. Don't know your name offhand, but shout out to the person who dropped in the comments last week that they were actually watching from Greece. We had somebody on here watching from Greece, man. Shout out to y'all. Before we get started, I gotta know something. Did you all enjoy our 500th episode? I thought this episode was hands down one of our best. I thought it was the funniest episode. We had the fans in there gifting memberships to people left and right. Couldn't have had more fun doing that. And it got me to thinking, 500 episodes. Next month, we'll be celebrating 2 years of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. I have not been here since episode one. I'm probably over 425 episodes in as a part of the production team. And then I grew into a rotating panelist. And of course, now we have the Ultimate 216 Show. And it really got me to thinking about, you know, preparation meeting opportunity. And I think that it's very important that we speak on that just for a few minutes. By the way, my man Spencer German will be joining me shortly. Y'all already know my boy Spencito, host over at 92.3 The Fan. Every time we get a chance to link up, we try to bring y'all some quality content. So this is a very different platform, and I'm excited for me and him to get a chance to do this. But what I wanted to speak on before I brought him on was opportunity. Preparation meeting opportunity. And it made me just think, today is 500 episodes. And I just remember all the work I put in, to prepare myself to grow in this industry and to grow into this game. And even when situations don't look like, the finish line is promising or it's bright or that things is going to work out in your favor, that's where having some faith come into play. All you got to do is just trust the process, keep putting in the work, and make sure that, when your opportunity come, that you've put in the work to grab onto it and get started and try to boss your life up. And with preparation, it takes discipline. It takes a whole lot of discipline. It takes a lot of maturity. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of sleepless nights. It takes a lot of failures, a lot of L's. But if you can just stick through it and persevere, you'll find yourself in a position to catch everything that's meant for you to have. And that can be like, when it comes to a career, when it comes to a job change, when it comes to a relationship, when it comes to, just every different walks of life. If you can prepare yourself professionally and personally for what's to come next, you put yourself in a situation to win. And that's just something that I wanted y'all to think about before we really got into this show. Because again, to be a part of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, to where I've had so many opportunities, to spread my wings and fly. Shout out to Steve Becker, shout out to Adam Ostro, shout out to Mickey, shout out to everybody involved, shout out to Mikey McNugget, shout out to Ant, like dudes who like just really like made me feel like family right away. It feels good to work for a company that when you come in and they tell you, they ask you what's your goals, what's your end goal, and then they put you in a position to actually get an opportunity to execute that play. That don't happen everywhere. So I couldn't be more thankful to be a part of this organization, this franchise, as we continue to grow, as we continue to just expand. So just keep that thought in the back of your head at all times, man. Always like put yourself in a position to be prepared for the next opportunity that's gonna come your way. We got to take a break. But when I come back from break, like I said, man, my homeboy Spencito, y'all know him from 92.3 The Fan, host over there. My man is spreading his wings. He's covering the Cleveland Browns for Browns Digest. He got so many jobs, man. It's ridiculous. And, over at The Fan, me and him have talked endless about, getting opportunities to host a show. getting an opportunity just to create more content together. And, today it presented itself to where, we can do this together. So again, we're going to take a quick break, word from our sponsors, come back, and then I'll bring to you all Spencito. But first, before we get into that, it's important that I let you know that today's episode of the Ultimate 216 Show is brought to you by FanDuel. And it's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL, and baseball is full swing. FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers are going to get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose, right? Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. And with that, we welcome to the show my homeboy, Spencito. What's up, bro?
Earl, what's going on, brother?
You feel, man?
I'm good. I just want to say I appreciate this invite, man. You know how much I appreciate you, and anytime we get to work together, 92.3, it's a thrill for me, man. Like just the way we put our heads together. I think the way we talk about things and the stuff that we talk about, we're not afraid to go deeper on things than just like the surface level conversations. And I think it's great that you and I get to talk about it also from just like different backgrounds and perspectives every single time. So as soon as you reached out to me about this, man, I was like, bro, you already know I want to come on the show with you. Like you said, it's a different space. It's a different platform. And I'm looking, I also, real quick, I'll just add, I also appreciate the fact that I think you and I, our careers kind of are on a similar trajectory in terms of like putting in that grind to get to a point where you feel comfortable. Not that you ever get comfortable, but to a point where like you see the hard work paying off. And I'm a huge admirer, obviously, of all the work that you put in and everything that you're doing over there at the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, this podcast, some of the other stuff that you do. And of course, obviously, all the stuff you do at 92.3 alongside me or around me. So just know that I appreciate you, brother. And I'm glad that we get to kind of follow each other on this similar path. And hopefully it ends up with one day with us doing this more often on a regular basis. I'd love that.
Yeah, for sure, man. And the same too, I kind of echo everything you just said. Me and you come from very different backgrounds, but we have really grown to have an authentic and true friendship. And we do have tough conversations. We have conversations that we pick each other's brain from a different perspective, whether it be economical, racial, or cultural standpoint, right?
Yeah.
See things differently. And I think it's always important to have people in your life that you can get a perspective from things that you might be ignorant to, right? Because often if you don't know somebody who's been through it, or if you've not experienced it yourself, then your view towards it can be a little slanted. And to have somebody who authentically cares enough about you to really have those conversations, bro, I couldn't tell you how much I appreciate you. To see your career, take off. You already know, man, I'm cheering for you with every opportunity that you get. Whether it be 92.3 The Fan here or elsewhere, bro, like it's in the plans for us to do way more work together. If you ask me, man, when it comes to the radio side of things, like I think we go next, right? Like
I hope.
You always ask, like, who's the hottest young host at 92.3 The Fan? And I said, man, me and Spencer. Like it's not this is not algebra, right? This is this is simple math, man. Like, you know me, man. Like, I respect everybody in this game, but as you said, it seems like our career paths seems to be trending in the right direction at the same time, and we always take advantage of getting these opportunities to get some work in. So let's start with the roses and actually get some work in.
Let's do it.
A baseball guy, right? And
yeah,
the Guardians, man. To me, I think a lot of their success is directly like tied to Stephen Vogt being a great leader. And I think he's earning the respect of the fan base here. I think he's earning the respect of the players, and he's definitely earning respect around the league. This is the Guardians team that coming into the season, we had little to no expectations for based on the front office, doing little to nothing in the offseason to improve a roster that really didn't perform last year. And you see this team, man, Spencer, they are finding ways to win in ways that we have not seen before. They are off to one of the best starts I think they had. This is like their third best start in the history of the entire franchise. And just the mindset, the attitude, the temperament, the energy of this team, I think it ties directly back to Stephen Vogt. You follow this thing close, and it just seems like from the beginning, he's talked about the World Series. He's talked about that being a realistic goal, and why not us? Him being a former player, not too far removed from the game, I think that helps. I think the fact that he takes a different approach to certain things than Tito did. Just talk about from what you see from somebody that's, in my opinion, a student of the game.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, man. Like, I thought that the moment Stephen Vogt, and maybe this is more from the outside, like fan perspective of it, but I thought the moment Stephen Vogt really kind of told you what he was about, and maybe seized the respect of both the fan base, but also just that clubhouse, was when he made the decision at the end of spring training to basically move on from Miles Straw, like expose him to waivers, to then and get Tyler Freeman more at bats in center field and get him playing out there, a position change for him, but they've been trying during the spring. And I think that sort of was a testament to, hey, I'm coming in here, and listen, all due respect to Terry Francona, I'm not shy about the fact that I grew up a Red Sox fan, so I'll say that on this platform too. I don't hide from that. I don't run from that. But the Guardians obviously have a soft spot in my heart because I live here. I love Cleveland, and I'm constantly following them and cheering for them. So I want to see him do well. But all due respect to Terry Francona, I love the guy. I admire him. He's a Boston legend. He's a Cleveland legend here now for what he did the years that he was managing this team. But I think Vogt basically established hey, it's a new sheriff in town. I'm going to do things a different way, and I'm not just going to stick with guys because they've always kind of had that role or that position or whatever. So I think that went a long way for a lot of people. And yeah, I think if you had questions, or anybody that had questions about how he was going to resonate and is he going to be able to kind of pick up the torch from Terry Francona and just keep rolling, I think he's answered those in the first month. Obviously, schedule matters here too. They've had somewhat of a lighter schedule to start the year, but it's about building momentum. And when you have a new manager in there, it's good to see them off to the start and kind of just rallying behind him, and hopefully he can turn into winning now in May, June, July, August, September. And we're talking about a team that's in the playoffs and competing. So yeah, I've been very impressed with what he's done so far. I don't know how you couldn't be.
Yeah, when you look at this, you talk about making those tough decisions, and he's going about things different from Terry Francona. Jay Crawford brought this up, and I want your opinion on this.
Sure.
Tito was the OG, and the only times that he had losing records is when we dealt with some serious injuries. But notoriously, the Guardians will get off to a slow start, and then seems like the last 2 months of the season we will catch fire. And sometimes it worked out for us. Sometimes it was kind of like a little too late. But this year, this team is off to a fast start. Now, you mentioned the schedule, right? I'm a person that believes eventually we got to start looking at what we see and accepting it for what it is. Now, we're going to Atlanta this weekend and face the Braves. If the Guardians can play well in that series, do you think fans will be more confident in saying, okay, this is for real, this is sustainable?
I think so. Yeah, anytime you beat a team that's projected to be a World Series contender or one of the best in either league, I think people start to buy in a little bit more and start to believe it's not just fool's gold. And I threw out the schedule thing, not because, me, or I'm not one of these guys who's ever going to be like, well, it's, they haven't played anybody, so how do we, I might throw that out there occasionally and be like, yeah, I think we still need to see more, but I'm not going to disparage them for playing who they have to play. The schedule's what the schedule is. They had no control over it. I think it's a little weird that they put both the Red Sox and Yankees, who are two of the bigger draws in Cleveland every single year, they put both those series in Cleveland in April, which makes absolutely no sense to me. But what are you going to do? But yeah, so listen, they've beaten the majority of the teams that they played. They've won 17 times to this point. That's not for nothing. The offense looks really, really good. I think that's one of the most encouraging things about this team is we thought the pitching staff was going to be the strength, And because of injuries and things, it's been the offense that's really kind of carried the load here. And and again, I mentioned the word momentum. If they can use what they've now sort of built here in this first month, and that carries into a series like Atlanta and beyond into some of these tougher matchups that you're going to have, then I think like that's what you're hoping to do here. And then we'll be able to look back on the start of the season and say, okay, it wasn't just a fluke. Like this offense is legit. So, and there'll be lulls. Like it's a 162 game season. They're not going to win 17 out of 25 games that they play every single month. But yeah, like it's a really encouraging start, and I do hope that it's that people aren't just looking at it as with a jaded eye of, well, they played the A's X amount of times and they played a bad Red Sox team X amount of times. Like how much of this is really real? I hope they're treating it as, listen, this team's off to a really good start, and that there's some buzz around them, and that if they can go do something against the Braves and some of these other teams, it just adds to that, and that people are showing up to the games, which Cleveland fans tend to do that once the weather gets warmer anyway.
Big facts, big facts. So Gavin Williams will be returning to the starting rotation, once he's healthy enough and he's ready to go. If this team continues to play this well, Spencer, I think that a lot of these young guys are showing up and showing out. A lot of the prospects that we were looking at last year to kind of make some noise is making some noise this year. Shane Bieber is down. Tristan McKenzie, he's dealing with what he's dealing with, though. The last game he pitched in was probably his most quality start this season. If this thing looks like it's for real, we know that this team usually don't go out here and spend money. But do you think Chris Antonetti and this front office will actually go make a move to improve this roster in any way if the Guardians can sustain this level of play?
I love the question because that is like the big elephant in the room. Like, will they do it? Gavin Williams coming back, I think, is huge. I think that'll dictate a lot of where their heads are at with things. I'm not too optimistic. I think between him and Tristan McKenzie now, who we found out last week is throwing with a tear in his UCL, like I think for somebody like that, it's just kind of a matter of time. Whenever you hear elbow, you're always just kind of holding your breath, hoping it doesn't turn into Tommy John, and then it usually does. So I kind of have the same fear with Gavin Williams that this is eventually going to be Tommy John. But if he can come back and be effective and sort of give some stability to that rotation, I think you're probably less inclined to see them make a move at the deadline, unless it's to sell off a piece that is going to be due up for a contract extension that they can't pay. But the only one that comes to mind right now in that category are Shane Bieber, who they're probably not moving now, because I actually think there's a path towards maybe bringing him back on a short-term, more affordable deal now that he's going to be going through Tommy John surgery. And Josh Naylor, but you're not trading Josh Naylor right now because he's one of your biggest bats in the lineup and you're going to need him. I was actually surprised by that too. Like, it hit me within the last couple weeks that Naylor only has 2 years of arbitration left. And I was like, that's crazy. Like, I thought he still had a decent amount of time left. So at some point, that's going to be a conversation, whether or not they should extend him or how they extend him. But yeah, so I guess right now I'd be more inclined to say they probably don't, because I just know how this team kind of has operated over the years. Right. But I think Bieber would have been that piece that they moved. But I'm not going to say no completely, because if they're in the mix and the offense is still playing well, but the rotation needs some help, I could see them going out at the deadline and trying to do something to bring in another pitcher to kind of help stabilize things. I don't know if it's going to be a blockbuster. That seems like something they wouldn't necessarily do. But if they can get somebody that's a reliable arm, I think it'd be maybe worth their while.
Right. Facts, man. Don't forget game 2 of the Guardians versus the Boston Red Sox coming to you. What is it, a 6:10 start tonight?
I believe so. I think that's right. Yeah, 6:10.
6:10 start. All right, so listen, y'all, we got to take a break, man. And when we come back, we're going to switch over and start talking about the NFL draft that's coming up this weekend. Don't forget to smash the like button. Make sure you're subscribed, man. And in the comments, drop hashtag U216. Let me know where you're watching from. And if you got any comments for Spencer, we're going to get to them by the end of this show. But first, I have been told that I am a competitive person. I think Spencer knows that to be fact. So, yeah, I have a competitive side. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that brings you big money. The best part about all these is messing with your friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties, just like Classic Monopoly, but I now can also rob their vaults of riches for myself. And then the leaderboard shows me who the biggest monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with the friends and the people all around the world, time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So go get the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store and the Google Play. Spencer, man, listen. NFL draft is coming up, and I think for the first time in a long time, it kind of snuck up on us here in the city of Cleveland because one, we ain't got no first round pick, and two, we got a pretty stacked roster, right? And so, just to give some people some context of what's going on, the NFL draft it starts tomorrow, goes through the 27th. The Browns' first pick will be Friday. Again, we got pick number 54. Of course, the Chicago Bears have the first pick, and you can watch the drive on ESPN and all of their affiliates. So, a lot of the talk has been, okay, is the Browns going wide receiver? Like, what is the position of choice? I tend to think that Andrew Berry is going to go best player available. Now, G. Bush, another one of our co-workers at 92.3 The Fan, said that it's a no-brainer. The Browns should go wide receiver at 54. I think G is full of it. If I'm being totally honest with you, I think that the Browns need to go in the trenches. And I'm going to tell you why, and then I want your analogy as well. We're going to do this like if we was elsewhere, okay?
Okay.
So,
all right.
So for me, this is how I see it, right? Football has always been one that lost in the trenches. I don't care how much the rules change. I don't care how much the game change. When it come down to it and it's winning time, the play in the trenches usually decides the outcome of the game. You know, whether AFC Championship, NFC Championship, Super Bowl, whatever. I'm talking about in those big moments, right? The Cleveland Browns was able to overcome a lot of injuries from a lot of different positions. But one of the things that I did peep that happened last year, bro, was the amount of injuries that was suffered on the offensive and the defensive line. And yeah, we was able to make it to the playoffs and we made patchwork of the situation. Some of the guys we was able to get back, but, you know, we lost DeJuan Jones for the season, Jack Conklin for the season, Jed Wills for the season. You know, Agbo on the other side of the ball missed some time. It was other guys on the defensive line that missed some time. And to me, when you go draft a player, no matter who's being drafted at 54, I don't think that said player is going to have an immediate impact on this team. I think it's a depth piece, somebody that you develop, somebody that's either an impact role player or a future starter. And for me, even if it's, I just think it makes more and more sense to go get an offensive or a defensive lineman. On the offensive side of the ball, you got guys whose contract might be up that's making a lot of money, guys that's a little older. And yeah, we keep running it back with the 1 year, you know, contract extensions for these older veteran defensive linemen. But eventually you probably want to lock that position down as well. So just talk about, you know, your thoughts on it being in the trenches versus a position like wide receiver or something like that.
Yeah, so I see both angles of this because listen, I think you can never have too many good or, you know, potentially good wide receivers, right? Like guys that you can develop, and we know Andrew Berry has drafted a wide receiver in every single draft since he's become the GM of the Cleveland Browns. So I'm anticipating at some point they're going to draft a wide receiver. It's fun to play the game of like what they're going to do at 54 when so much depends on what happens before you on the board. But I could see why wide receivers in play. I also can see why a number of other positions are in play, including what you're alluding to with like the defensive tackle spot. Now, I started the offseason thinking wide receiver was going to be the move. Then they make the Jerry Jeudy trade, and I think in a lot of ways the Browns are going to pitch that as like, well, this was our big wide receiver move. Now we just want to use the draft to get a guy to sort of develop behind the guys that we have, kind of the frontline guys. And they also keep in mind, like, they still have a guy like David Bell and a guy like Cedric Tillman who they're hoping develop into something more steady and consistent as well. So I don't know at this point that I feel they're going to go wide receiver for certain at 54. I actually tend to lean more your direction as I've gotten kind of closer and closer to the draft, that I think defensive tackle will be kind of what they have their eyes on. I also think the fact that the wide receiver class this year is regarded as one of the deepest, and I know we say that every year, there's always like a really deep wide receiver class, but I think because of that, you can find another guy that could still turn into a reliable wide receiver for you. in round 3, potentially in round 4, even potentially even later. I know there's a couple of names that have popped up on the Browns' radar. So I feel more inclined, like you mentioned, to think that they target maybe defensive line. I think a guy like Chris Jenkins Jr. out of Michigan could be in play around there. I also think Michael Hall from Ohio State could be in play for them there. I think there's a couple different names that kind of come to mind, but I tend to agree. I also think, Earl, too, I'll keep this part quick, but because the injuries are part of it, but also in Jim Schwartz's defense, we know he loves to rotate his defensive linemen. Aside from like Myles Garrett's generally going to be out there most plays, but defensive ends, defensive tackles, those guys rotate in and out. So if you can get a guy that's going to see decent snaps next year, who's going to see the field, going to play, and is going to be able to learn from, but he doesn't have to be like a frontline starter, and he can kind of learn, develop behind some of the guys they already have. I think there's huge value in that potentially at 54. So I know we like to sometimes disagree and have a good debate about it, but we're on the same page with this. I'm with you that I think defensive line makes the most sense.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's the position that makes the most sense. Andrew Berry has done a great job of assembling this roster, and it'd be exciting to see the guys that do come in here with the 5 picks, if we even draft 5 players, because when you look at this roster, there's not much room for guys to make this team. The Browns, more depth on the defensive line. You got a new defensive line coach. Kevin Stefanski was on with Ken Carman and Anthony Lyman, and he talked about Mike Vrabel's role. And so it seems like he's going to be a little bit of everywhere with everybody. And so you got new coaches in the building that might have a say-so in what's going on with the draft. It's going to be very, very interesting. I know one thing for sure, that this defense needs to play much, much better when they hit the road. Speaking of hitting the road, the Cleveland Cavaliers hit the road. I'm pretty sure they're gone now. Game 3 is tomorrow in Orlando. Cavs got an opportunity to really all but close out this series. You know how they go. They say in the NBA playoffs, once you win that one on the road, that can change everything. I don't know if you see my tweet yesterday, but I said, how do you feel for the people who threw a whole ass fit about how they finished out the regular season? How do you feel about taking a commanding 2-0 lead into Orlando? Some people was like, well, it was kind of expected. And I call BS on that, because based on the temperament at the time, people were saying Orlando in 5, Orlando in 6, and they didn't like the way the Cavs went about it. But clearly the Cavs is the best team here. Do you foresee them going into game 3 and kind of taking care of their business and continuing to play the stout defense that they played?
I'm torn on this, because at the beginning of the series, I would have said Cavs in 6. After seeing how dominant they were in games 1 and 2, I'm like teetering on I think they probably get this thing done in 5. And I'm trying to decide if Orlando gets that emotional back home game in game 3, or if it happens in game 4 when it's do or die. We need this one. Honestly, Earl, it just feels like the Cavs have been so smothering against them that I don't know how much of an inch they're really even going to give in this game. So I feel really good about them going into this one. Now, the biggest thing that you have to account for is role players play better at home than they do on the road. So I'm envisioning that Orlando gets a little bit of a boost from certain players. Gary Harris potentially. I think Jalen Suggs probably plays a little bit better at home among some of these other guys that are going to come in and be part of the rotation. So I think that matters. I guess if I'm sitting here gun to my head, I'd probably say Orlando wins game 3, but then the Cavs get game 4 and come back home trying to close it out in game 5. And that's kind of where I lean. But to your point, it is funny how quickly things have changed within a week span, right? The regular season ends the way it did, and all these people were, I can't believe they ended the season that way. How could you just tank for a better matchup and all these different things? And then they win the first 2 games and everyone's oh, hey, yeah, we're in a good spot. We feel really good about things. So I get why it looks bad, and I understand maybe the guys in the locker room didn't like it, and that's the most important thing. But from the outside looking in, man, I don't blame him at all for trying to take the matches that was going to help you get some footing in the playoffs before you just get a Boston or somebody else.
Yeah, I feel man, I think realistically, internally, they know that maybe this year's team is not equipped to go win an NBA championship. And I think that's everybody's bottom line.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the horses to go win the race, then you know what? Maximize on the situation at hand, get the most out of it. And it seems like that's what the Cavs did. They put themselves in the situation to get the most out this postseason. And I think when it's all said and done, it will be progress from last year to this year. And regardless of how it ends, because I don't think no fan in Cleveland expected us to kind of like, win the NBA championship. I think overall people will be a little satisfied. All right, so before we get out of here, bro, I told you, man, the show kind of go by a little bit fast. Go through the comments, man. We appreciate everybody who tuned in from this. We said we got Gregory said he was watching from Salem, Ohio. He also says, great show as always, Earl. Keep up the great work, man. I appreciate you. U216, he is in Everett, Washington. Shout out to you. This is H.
Man, you're coast to coast, Earl. We're watching you coast to coast.
Hey, man, listen,
I love it.
To get on your level. We got somebody watching by way of originally East 117th. Much respect to the St. Clair area. Let's see here. Said the Browns had 2 picks they didn't take Lamar Jackson with, and now Derrick Henry is a Raven. The old Browns are good. The new Browns are silly at best. I disagree with them being silly.
Isn't this the most competent they've been in a while?
Yeah. I mean, it's the best 5-year stretch the Browns have had in a long time. Purcell or Franklin is there. The drop off after is significant. I actually do agree with that comment right there. It says, what's this one here? It says, I hope that they go edge of D-line. We got Quentin Jefferson in the offseason. He will be the best defensive tackle. And then we got somebody says here that the Cavs will sweep. Young P says, I got faith that the Cleveland Browns will win the Super Bowl next season. Hey, man, talk that talk. Listen, but guys like me and Spencer, we hope. We 1,000% hope. Listen, that's the type of content that we looking forward to create. Hey, bro, man, I cannot thank you enough for just taking time out your busy schedule to pull up and do this with me. This was fun to be able to do this from a visual standpoint. Usually when people hear me and you together, it's on the radio. Much love to you and your family, man. Keep grinding. I'll meet you at the top, bro.
I like that. I love that. Listen, man, I said at the beginning, I appreciate you greatly. I appreciate the relationship that we have. And anytime you want me to jump on with you, chop it up, it can be, and listen, you already know, like, it can be this type of stuff where we're talking more sports and getting into just like the draft or whatever. It can be something deeper than that too, if you want to. Like, I love having those conversations with you. So anytime, brother, it's in. If there's an invitation you send my way, I'm going to do everything I can to be on with you and talk it up. So I will definitely meet you at the top.
For sure, bro, man. And thanks to everybody that took your time out, man, to watch, to listen, however you're going to consume this. Again, we celebrated 500 episodes today. Thank y'all for that. Me, Mike, Ant, we bring it behind the glass back to y'all in a couple hours. So y'all ain't done seeing my face for the day, man. But until next time, remember, be great. Spread love. Being great come with a price. Spreading love is priceless. For me, for Spencer, we are out of here.